We have some critical mass here around 19. I always like to see that, and it'll I'm sure climb a little bit more as time goes on. But good as time as ever to start. We really appreciate everybody joining in today. My name is Diego Lopez. I'm the section chief for the Maryland Energy Administration. We're here representing also the Maryland Clean Cities Coalition. It's a national program where we have tons of free resources for residents, fleets, communities, local governments that want to electrify, that want to look into clean transportation. Today's workshop will really specifically be around electric vehicles. And we have two really great presenters that will give us a little bit more context. We'll have some other webinars going into the future that will be more specific around EV charging stations. And then a third webinar that will be around fleet electrification. So some of those really big vehicles. But today, we're just going to be talking about some light duty vehicles. So we have a really a great list of speakers here. Pratiksha from MEA, our transportation energy specialist. And we also have Christopher Green, stakeholder liaison from the IRS, gives us a little bit more context around tax credits. So we're really excited to kind of dive deep into kind of the EV basics, get some rebate and EV tax credit information out. But feel free, if you all have questions while we are presenting, feel free to put those questions into the chat. We'll try and address those as we're going, but we'll also have plenty of time, 20, 30 minutes towards the end of the webinar to ask both Pratiksha and Christopher all kinds of questions surrounding electric vehicles. But with that being said, I'll pass that over to Pratiksha to get us started. Thank you all so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all had a great day so far. Welcome to the first webinar of the EV webinar series hosted by the Maryland Energy Administration. Before we begin, I'd like to establish some ground rules. Please remain on mute and do not turn on your cameras due to the size of this call. Towards the end of this call, we will have a Q&A session. In case you have questions during the call, please put them in the chat, and my colleague Diego, Chris, and I will try to answer all of them. This webinar is only going to cover light-duty EVs. In case you have any questions or suggestions on other types of EVs, please put them in the chat, and maybe we'll also have a webinar on that sometime in the future. And now I'm going to turn my camera off because I'm having internet connectivity issues, but hope you all can still hear me throughout the webinar. This is the EV 101 workshop hosted by me, Pratiksha Ganeshan. I am a transportation energy specialist at the Maryland Energy Administration. And towards the end, we'll have Christopher Green from the IRS, who has some cool info about tax rebates, join us. Today, we'll cover fundamental concepts of electric vehicles to ensure everyone has a clear understanding. First, we will explore the various types of EVs available, including their unique features. We'll discuss different types of chargers, the cost associated with them, and tools to find charging stations. We will also have an overview of state-level plans and initiatives supporting EV adoption. And finally, highlight programs that can help reduce costs for EV owners through incentives and energy efficiency programs. Let's start off with a quick icebreaker. How many of you have driven an electric car? Feel free to use any of the reaction emojis in the meeting to answer. Now, how many of you own an EV? If you would like to talk more about your EV, please feel free to put it in the chat about what EV you own or what you would like to own. Moving on, electric vehicle 101. There are three types of electric vehicles in the current market. Hybrid electric vehicles, or HEVs. These combine an engine and an electric motor to give you power. They do not require a charger that can be plugged in, and the battery offers an added fuel economy of 10 to 50 miles. Next, we have plug in hybrid electric vehicles or PHEVs. These are the same as hybrid electric vehicles in that they both use an electric motor and an engine. However, the battery can be charged using a charging cable and regenerative braking. They also provide an electric range of 20 to 50 miles. And finally, we have all electric vehicles or battery electric vehicles, commonly referred to as EVs or BEVs. These are powered solely by an electric motor. They charge via cable and regenerative braking and offer a range of 80 to 500 miles on full charge. EVs typically come with an increased energy security due to their reduced dependence on fossil fuels. They are more energy efficient than conventional vehicles. EVs typically require lower fuel and maintenance costs, and they significantly reduce greenhouse gases and pollutants. At the same time, upfront costs can be higher for EVs when compared to traditional vehicles. Charging stations may not be as widespread in areas, however, the infrastructure is only growing. EV batteries can degrade over time, affecting range and performance. They might also have a limited range compared to traditional vehicles, particularly in all electric models. Why do EV I'm sorry, my slides were glitching. Why do EVs matter to Maryland? Tailpipe emissions contribute to ozone and particulate matter generation, leading to respiratory issues like asthma. EVs produce less than half the carbon emissions of traditional gas powered cars. Additionally, Maryland households spend nearly 18% of their budget on transportation. With electricity being cheaper than gas and the increased efficiency of EVs, travel costs can be reduced by half compared to conventional vehicles. Now, if you look at the colorful graph to your right, this gives a breakdown of greenhouse gas emissions in the state of Maryland in the year 2022, broken down by sector. Notice that the biggest chunk is from transportation at 38.3%. Furthermore, if you look at the blue pie chart on your left, this shows a breakdown of transportation emissions based on mode of transport. And here, personal vehicles have the lion's share of a whopping 81%. Moving on, let's look at charging costs. And before we get into the weeds, a very important term associated with EV charging is the Electric Vehicle Supply Equipment or EVSE. It simply means all the equipment needed to deliver electrical energy from an electricity source to a plug in electric vehicle battery. So essentially, your EV, a charging cable, and a power source. Now that you know this, where can you charge your EV? 80% of charging can be done at home, which includes single family residential garages and driveways on the street and multi unit dwellings. About 15% would be done at your workplace. Business offices, office parks, campuses, industrial facilities, and fleet locations. You may also use websites like workplacecharging.com to find where you can charge your EVs. And finally, 5% can be done in the public at parking lots or garages, public or municipal areas, retail locations, transportation hubs, and hotels. Now, there are different types of chargers you can use for your EV. Let's break them down. First, a level 1 charger. This is typically what comes with your EV purchase. It can be plugged into a standard 120-volt electric supply, which is what we have all over our houses that we use to charge our laptops, connect our TVs, etc., making the installation cost zero. Using a Nissan Leaf as our base case, it would cost $9 to charge completely. The charging time is typically 12 to 24 hours, with each hour of charge giving you 2 to 5 miles of range. These chargers are only used in residential settings. The second type is level 2 chargers. These require a 240-volt outlet that can be hardwired, which means you might need an electrician to get this installed, or you could do it yourself if you have a particularly good set of skills. Their price varies from $500 to $2,000, and this would include two components: the price to purchase your charging equipment and the cost to install them. They cost about the same as a level 1 charger for a full charge on a Nissan Leaf. The charging time is typically 3 to 8 hours, with each hour of charge giving you 10 to 20 miles of range. These chargers are used both in residential and commercial settings. At your workplace, a local grocery store, etc., would feature a level 2 charger. And last, we have the DC fast charger or level 3 chargers. These require a 420-volt outlet, so you would definitely need an electrician to get this installed. They can be quite expensive at $60,000 to $120,000 for the charger and installation, and cost about $14 to $24 for full charge. The charging time, however, is significantly reduced to 30 minutes to 2 hours, with each hour of charge giving you 60 to 80 miles of range. These chargers are only used in commercial settings. Now that we've covered basics in charging, let's move on to maintenance. Hybrid electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids have maintenance needs similar to conventional vehicles. EVs, on the other hand, generally require lesser maintenance. The battery and motor usually need little to no upkeep. There are fewer fluids that need to be changed. Brake wear is lesser due to regenerative braking, and overall, there are fewer moving parts to worry about. In terms of safety, electric drive vehicles have to meet the same standards as conventional cars. Most manufacturers offer a warranty of about 8 years or 100,000 miles. Under normal conditions, you can expect a battery to last between 10 to 12 years. For more safety information, you can refer to the AFDC EV guide. If you would like to know more about EV maintenance, there are more slides in this deck and it's going to be posted on the MEA's website. However, we're not going to get into details right now. Moving on, does charging your EV have impacts on the grid? EVs typically produce fewer life cycle emissions, especially when they're charged with renewable energy. As more people adopt EVs, we'll see a higher electricity demand, especially during peak hours, which means we might need to upgrade the grid. Using renewable energy and technologies like vehicle to grid or V2G can help manage these impacts. It's important to promote off peak charging and invest in grid infrastructure to support the sustainable integration of EVs. A 60% in EV adoption could result in an 18% increase in overall energy demand. The figure to your right shows load figures for battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids. Both BEVs and PHEVs show significant peaks in electricity demand during off-peak hours and typical commute times. Managing these peaks through smart charging strategies like time restricted or workplace charging can help reduce the impact on the grid. The difference in peak loads between BEVs and PHEVs highlight the varying energy requirements and charging patterns for these type of vehicles. Now, is anyone here planning on buying an EV anytime soon? If you are, these would be the questions you should ask yourself. They have to do with daily mileage, charging access, electricity costs, charging speed, long distance travel, and charging stations. These would be the steps you would use to pick your best EV. First, narrow your search. Choose EVs that meet your range and charging needs. Next, you would consider the vehicle's range and your typical travel patterns. Then you would decide if leasing or buying suits your budget and needs. And finally, you would test drive your top choices and hopefully you can negotiate a great price. To get started on your EV search, you can visit websites like fueleconomy.gov. This website is a great tool that you can use to compare and contrast different EVs. Now, I would like to call upon a few volunteers. If you could raise your hands and you can give me an EV and we can see if it's better or worse than a Nissan Leaf.
Or we can compare with a gas vehicle. If
Yes.
if you have your
If
current gas vehicle too.
yes. Is anyone interested in volunteering? That's okay. We can move on. So this is a great website where you can compare and contrast up to four vehicles. So you would simply add a vehicle to which you would select the year of manufacture, let's say 2024. There are different models here. We can choose a Tesla. There are also different models of Teslas that are available to compare and contrast.
Oh,
And
and
then
it
all
looks
you
like
would do.
there's one other right before that. If you wanted to add Larissa's here, 2018. I
Oh,
mean, you
yeah.
can even check my old car too, but 2018 Nissan Rogue was Larissa's. We can always go back and check my for those that think, maybe it's good that I can just keep my 2013 Nissan, whatever, 2013 Honda Accord, it's actually costing you a lot more money to keep the vehicle than to simply upgrade an electric vehicle, which will have a lower cost or a lower maintenance cost. But we can go ahead and compare that. Go for it, Prateeksha.
So this website would first give you the price of the vehicle. It would also give you information on fuel economy and how much you would spend or save over 5 years for charging or gas. Over here, you would see that for a premium gasoline vehicle, which is a 2018 Fiat, you would spend $2,750 more in fuel costs over 5 years. Whereas if you had a 2023 Nissan Leaf, you would be saving $5,750 in fuel costs over 5 years. Better if you have a Tesla. Well, no, it's worse if you have a Tesla. So it would also give you other factors like annual fuel cost and the cost to drive 25 miles. You can also look at other factors here like annual petroleum consumption, tailpipe emissions, safety aspects, and specifications. So if anyone's looking to buy a car, you know where to start. Oh. Now, moving on to state programs, tax incentives, and other resources. And I'm going to hand it off to Chris from the IRS, who's going to give you information.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Pratiksha, for that great information. My name is Christopher Green. I am a stakeholder liaison with the Internal Revenue Service. And yes, I'm going to talk to you today about clean vehicle credits. But before I get into it, I wanted to see if everyone is listening in. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up as a reaction or put it in the chat there to let me know that you're listening in here. Want some great questions, some participation as we move forward. Don't change the screen just yet, Pratiksha. I want to talk about what the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 is. It's a ambitious piece of climate legislation, I would say, in United States history. And one of its goals is to make electric vehicles more affordable through clean vehicle tax credits. Okay. I want to note that a significant portion of the Inflation Reduction Act's clean energy investment is delivered through, of course, tax incentives, including but not limited to clean vehicle credits. So if you're thinking about purchasing a vehicle, let's go ahead and take a look at some information for purchasing a new or used vehicle on the next slide here. All right, so what you're looking at is publication 5905, okay? And if so, this information is for buyers purchasing a new or used vehicle, a clean vehicle. What you need to walk away from the dealership with, as far as the IRS energy credits online accepted clean vehicle or CV time of sale report. Now I know that's a lot to mouthful, a lot of words, Well, let's talk about what this report actually contains. It contains information from the seller, the buyer, the VIN number, the model year, the date of sale, the sales price, the maximum credit allowable, and a bunch of other information. But as you go further down this publication, you'll read buyers will need the information on the time of sale report when filing their tax return to show the vehicle's eligibility. Okay. Buyers can also transfer their CV credit up to $7,500 for new or up to $4,000 for used vehicles to the dealer as an upfront down payment. Very important information here. If you need more information about purchasing a used or new vehicle, you can visit www.irs.gov/vehicles, or you can scan the QR code, which is at the bottom of this publication, which is publication 5905. You'll hear that website more and more as we continue on through the slides. But let's go to the next publication in the next slide. Yeah, and I'm reading in there that the print is a little bit too small to read. I'll be reading a lot of this information to you, as well as providing you the publications and a resource document. Hopefully, we can get that sent to you via email so that you can actually just click on the links and go right to this publication and view it yourself. So, thank you for saying that. Is it Juliana Bell? Thanks for that information. Okay. This publication here is 5724-A. If you can't read it, that's okay. I'll read much of it for you so you have an understanding. This is the credit for clean vehicles. What is credit for new clean vehicles? If you're interested in claiming the clean vehicle credit for purchasing a new clean vehicle after August 16th, 2022, a tax credit is available only for qualifying clean vehicles. Here's what you should know. The maximum amount of the credit is $7,500 per vehicle purchased in that year. The credit is allowed for vehicles with manufactured suggested retail price, or MSRP, less than or equal to $80,000 for vans, sports utility vehicles, pickup trucks, or $55,000 for all other vehicles. Now, the base retail price suggested by the manufacturer plus the retail price suggested by the manufacturer for each accessory or item of optional equipment attached to the vehicle is what goes into that $80,000 and $55,000 respectively. Okay. What are the income limits for the credit? Well, you may be eligible for the credit if your modified adjusted gross income meets these thresholds. Well, let me stop here for a minute. Modified adjusted gross income is not only your income in the United States, but that also atones for any income that you have coming in from a foreign source. So those thresholds are 300,000 for married filing jointly, filing as a qualifying surviving spouse or a qualifying widow, $225,000 for head of household, and 150,000 for all other filers. And then at the bottom of this publication, it talks about what the vehicle needs to have to qualify for the credit, such as the final assembly needs to be in North America. You're uh, you're able to actually verify that information. We'll get into it in just a minute through the website NHTSA.gov, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. The manufacturer has to be a qualified manufacturer. And then once again, you can go to fueleconomy.gov for a list of qualified manufacturers. There's some battery components. There's a vehicle type components that need to be verified and need to, are needed to qualify. And there's a ton of other information. Listen, the website you need to go to for all of the information as it pertains to your vehicle is www.irs.gov/clean vehicles. It's going to have all of the qualifications right there. Okay. And moving on to our next slide here, you will see used clean vehicle credit. This publication is 5724. Okay. What is the used clean vehicles credit? Well, here's what you need to know about that because you still may be eligible for credit. The maximum amount of the credit is the lesser of $4,000 or 30% of the sales price. The credit is available to all qualified buyers who are not claimed as a dependent on someone else's tax return. Very important to know. Qualified buyers cannot claim the credit more than once every 3 years. The credit is allowed if the sales price is less than 25,000. So there's a sales price cap. What are the income limits for the credit? They got a little bit lower with this one. 150,000 for married filing jointly, filing as a qualifying surviving spouse or a qualifying widower. 112,500 for head of household, and 75,000 for all other filers. And thank you so much for dropping those in there, Diego, into the chat. Guys, click those links, save them in your favorites, save them as bookmarks. This is key information. What vehicles qualify for? Once again, it's at the bottom of this publication 5724. You're going to see the used vehicle has a model year of at least 2 years earlier than the calendar year when you buy it. For example, a vehicle purchased in 2023 would need a model year of 2021 or older. The used vehicle transfer to the qualifying buyer must be the first transfer to a qualified buyer since August 16th, 2022, when this all came to be. Okay. And I just want to repeat it one more time. Publication 5724. I can't repeat this enough. Make sure you're doing your research when you're going to buy, or if you just want to know more about used and new vehicles. And moving forward, here we are. I've put together those same resource links that are being dropped in the chat. You got them here as well. And starting from the top, you'll see frequently asked questions about new, previously owned, and qualified commercial clean vehicles credit publication. Now, we're not talking about the commercial clean vehicles today. We're going to just stay on the new and previously owned. But this document here is highly, highly, highly important to have as it answers almost every question you can think of. There's about 25 pages worth of questions, and they're all separated as topics for you to go ahead and research and in your spare time, go ahead and peruse through. Moving down, publication 5724 is on here for the credit for used clean vehicles. Publication 5724-A for credit for clean vehicles is here. Publication 5724-D, credit for previously owned clean vehicles. And I know some of you might be saying, what's the difference between owned and previously owned clean vehicles? Um, they're pretty close to the same. Well, here's what I want to tell you. There are such things as certified previously owned vehicles. A used vehicle is any model that has been owned or leased by at least one previous driver. All certified previously owned vehicles are used, but not all used vehicles are certified previously owned. So that'll be a question you might want to ask a dealer during or before your purchase if the car is certified previously owned. I implore you to do your research. We have some more information here in that publication, even though we did not go into detail about it. The next line item you see there is the fueleconomy.gov/new tax credit. You're going to find the information on how much of a credit you're able to get for new or used vehicles. You're going to find links, a bunch of information there. You just saw the search engine that Practitia showed us, where you can look at your vehicle versus a new vehicle that you might want, or look at other vehicles and compare and contrast right on that fueleconomy.gov website. And then I also put in here the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's webpage, nhtsa.gov/VIN dash decoder. And on this website, you're going to have access to identify particular vehicle information encoded in the VIN number. For example, a vehicle's plant of manufacture, you're going to find that information. It's available to the public. So go ahead and save that as a bookmark or as a website, a favorite website, so that you can do your research. And then lastly, I'm going to bring this website out once again because it's most important. www.irs.gov/clean vehicles. When you go on the IRS website, we have almost everything that we just talked about here. You're going to see clean vehicle credits, new vehicles from 2023 or after, new vehicles bought from 2022 or before, used vehicles, and a plethora of other information regarding vehicles and other energy credits. So make sure you go to the irs.gov webpage, save it, research it, and you'll have that at your fingertips as well. And moving on, if you have any further questions or you need some guidance, or if you have suggestions, feedback, issues, I mean, you don't like what is being said on a publication, whatever the case may be, send me an email, give me a call. I'm at your beckoning wish. Please contact me. And here's my contact information. So make sure you write it down or put it in, your OneNote, put it on a Microsoft Word document, put it somewhere where you can access it. Also, I want to add that we have a division that receives all of your questions and more regarding clean energy. I'd be happy to connect you if need be or answer your question directly. So connect with me and let's see what we can do to answer your question or get you to the person who can. I want to thank you all for listening to my presentation, Practicia's presentation. I hope this information is helpful in your research and your buying experience moving forward. With that being said, I would like to surrender the virtual microphone back to Pratiksha.
Great job, Chris. That was a lot of information. Now that you guys know so much about EVs, in case you're looking to buy one or you're planning to electrify a fleet and you do not know where to start, these are the next steps. You would first reach out to experts or resources to plan your fleet's transition to electric vehicles or just to find out what EVs are available. Next, you would get information on the types of EVs suitable for your needs and the infrastructure required, such as charging stations. Next, you would investigate available incentives and rebates to reduce costs. Trust me, there are plenty out there. You would then find the nearest charging stations and assess their accessibility, and finally explore options for installing and integrating EV technology into your current systems. To give you a glimpse of what's coming next, today we had the Basics of EVs webinar, and which is currently wrapping up. We will have webinar 2, which talks about EV charging. That's happening on the 13th of August. And finally, our last webinar in this series, EVs for Fleets, which is happening on the 29th of August. Feel free to register here or on MEA's website, and I hope to see all of you there. Now,
Excellent.
in
Well,
case
we'll
you
jump
guys
to
have
questions.
questions, you can either unmute yourself and talk about it, or you can just put it in the chat.
Really, really good job. I might have already some primed questions, but yeah, does anybody have questions for, Christopher? Going over the previously owned versus used, that was a really good, bit of information. Anybody else? Anybody have any good questions? Yeah, Bakari, go for it.
Yes, thank you for this presentation. I've kind of been mulling over whether or not I wanted to invest in EV. I currently don't own a car, but I do want to start a business to where a car would be essential for getting back and forth to some job sites. So I guess my question would be, this isn't just limited to just like actual vehicles, but like we can use this for trucks, correct?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, for the tax credits, maybe Chris, you can give more information about the commercial vehicles. Just for our perspective at MEA, we also have a medium and heavy duty grant program. So if you're looking at, a bigger van or a bus for that type of business, do let us know and we can connect and look at the different types of vehicles that are out there and what that grant kind of entails. But Chris, do you have some additional information on tax credits and some commercial vehicles or those types of vehicles?
Yes, absolutely. It's going to depend on the weight of the vehicle. I've received that question so often. I was just at the Maryland Auto Show down there in the Baltimore Convention Center, and that was one of the questions that I received all day long. Do can you get it for heavy duty trucks? It's really going to depend on the size of the truck. That's going to be the or a commercial vehicle. Most likely, you're going to still have the opportunity of getting a credit, but I would implore you to come back for our third presentation because I'm going to actually dive into that directly. If you want to talk offline, I'll give you specifics as it pertains to that because these vehicles that we're talking about today are for like personal usage. Now, on the personal side, you might have like a light truck, maybe like a pickup truck. You'll be able to have the access for those credits. But again, it cannot escape the MSRP for the on the personal side. But if you want to connect with me afterward, I'll be happy to talk to you about the commercial side and give you the exact the credits for those because you still may be eligible on the commercial side. Absolutely.
Yeah, really good question. Nick, any other questions? I think there was a question about a charging rate.
Yeah, someone just wanted to see the slide with the charging rates, and rest assured, these slides will be shared with you at the end of this webinar.
I'd like to, if I could, talk about a question that I receive a lot with regards to eligibility rules. If I can jump in, um, I receive this question often. If the new clean vehicle credit amount is more than my income tax liability for the year, is the credit refundable or able to be carried forward? I know that also goes over to the business side as well. Some folks have been wondering, what's the answer to that question? Is it able to be refunded to me, or can I carry it forward so I can lower my tax obligation for the future? The answer is the amount of the new clean vehicle credit that is more than your income tax liability cannot be refunded for either personal or business use. However, for purchases after December 31st, eligible taxpayers who purchase an eligible vehicle predominantly for personal use may transfer the entirety of the allowable credit to an eligible entity, which would be obviously a registered dealer in exchange for a financial benefit. And you must file there's a form you need to. I think it's an 8936 in a Schedule A reporting the transfer of the credit. The entire amount of the allowable credit may be transferred, even if the credit amount is more than your income tax liability. I just want to make sure I put that out there for folks. And I'm gonna give you an example. If you do not transfer the allowable credit and instead claim it on your personal use only on your Schedule 3 of your 1040, additional credits and payments, the new clean vehicle is limited to the amount of your income tax liability and cannot be carried forward. For example, your income tax liability is 3,000. Let's say you owe 3,000. That's your liability. You purchase a new clean vehicle for personal use. The amount of tax credit allowed for the new clean vehicle is 7,500. You can only claim the allowable 3,000, the amount of your income tax liability, because When claimed on a Schedule 3, the credit cannot reduce your tax liability to zero. The remaining 4,500 is not refunded, nor can it be carried forward. And we'll talk about the business side in the third webinar, but I wanted to make sure I put that in there because I get that all of the time. Make sure you talk to your dealer and try to work together a plan of action moving forward in your purchase.
Excellent. That was really good. Thank you so much, Chris, for that information. But anyone else? Any questions?
I have another question. My friend rented a Tesla to drive for Uber and Lyft. But he said that like if you don't use it a lot, then the battery could easily run down. Is this true of EVs that you kind of have to keep them driving, or could you like keep them dormant for a while? Like, because I use public transit here in Baltimore a lot, so there are times when I really don't need a car. So if I left it on the street for like days on end, would it would it would it die down, or would it just not work as much?
Really good question. So, and this works for almost all of the vehicles, electric vehicles that you can purchase. Nissan Leafs has this feature, Tesla has the feature, Kia has the feature, and I think Ford also. There's some others. Uh, Essentially, all of the problems that I've ever heard where a car has been kind of idle for 2 or 3 months, or someone took a vacation, was that the driver did not set it for vacation mode, or they didn't set it for to not trigger the internal HVAC system, the internal cabin system. A lot of times Teslas will turn on during what's called Sentry mode if someone goes past it. So that will drain the battery. So if you turn those types of features off, uh, then the battery issues that you hear from folks is almost it's just non-existent all the time. It's usually a user error, and someone just needs to put vacation mode, or don't put it into Sentry mode, and you should have a no problem uh, with that battery. Now granted, it just like all vehicles, I have heard, um, 6 months to 6 months and on, you do want to actually drive your vehicle. There are some chemistries and some batteries, but that's not universal. So definitely do the research. What kind of battery you have? Do you have vacation mode? All those kinds of things before you purchase that vehicle. Good question though. Oh, and one other caveat: if you did have it on Sentry mode and HVAC, it'll use about 2 miles per day. So you can calculate, how many miles you have for vacation if you don't set it, and forget it.
Excellent questions. Um, Anyone else? Any other questions?
I had a question. I would like to know, maybe you guys do this question, and maybe you don't. Are fully electric vehicles more popular than hybrid vehicles, in the EV world? Um, I don't want to say like which is better, but I know that there's different pros and cons of each. Um, just curious about that.
We can send out more information about, the actual numbers, how many folks are buying PHEVs, how many are buying EVs. But at the end of the day, I would never tell anybody which one is better. I would say which one is best for your kind of lifestyle, for your driving habits. If you're like me, you only drive 5 miles in a day, 15 miles in a day, then if the batteries, the fully electric vehicles that are out there fully meet my needs. But some folks do drive that 60, 70 miles in a day, 100 miles in a day. And so for them, that plug-in hybrid that gives them that added range, it's the diversity of fuel and technology. I would recommend that for them. And if that doesn't work, I also just simply recommend anti-idling. I recommend, more fuel efficient vehicles. So I know different vehicles are going to be for different folks. So um, look at your driving habits and, yeah, contact us if you have any questions on, what vehicles might be right for you.
I just wanted to add that there's also information available on this on MDOT's website. That's the Maryland Department of Transportation. That says that out of all the registered EVs, 30% of them have been plug-in hybrids and 70% have been regular battery electric vehicles. There's also a report on it if anyone's interested. I put it in the chat.
With any other last minute questions, again, we can give all this information out, all of these recordings, all of these links. We'll record a lot of this chat. We'll want a lot of feedback from the audience here today. What other EV kind of webinars would you all like to see? We can bring in speakers. We can bring in other folks that have adopted EVs. And get a little bit more perspective. So if you all have ideas for the next upcoming webinar or visiting a charging station and celebrating a success story, that can also be something that can be arranged and looked into. But this was a really great kind of first webinar just for the very basics of kind of EVs. So we really appreciate everybody being here. Any last minute questions? Well, excellent. Well, with that, we'll send out the recording. We'll send out a lot of these links, and again, give us a lot more feedback on what you would like to see and what stations you would like to see out there. And we'll send out more information about grants and EV tax credits. And again, thank you all so much. Thank you, Pratiksha. Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.